across, be it mains, be it in prelims. Right? Interview is a complete process in itself. Right? So don't feel like, Mukta, you just have started your experience with psychology or learning with psychology. So don't think that I will just write the answers once I complete the syllabus. Right? With your present level of understanding and living in this world for 23, 24 years, you have that experience wherein you can write something, right? You have to believe in your thinking power, and that's it. This is how you can write good answers. And as I already told you, that UPSC demands something more than content. Right? So first of all, we'll be understanding that what does it demand, or what points we need to keep in mind while we are writing psychology answers, or be it GS answers for that matter. Right? But thoda sa difference ye hai that because psychology is the optional, right? So it demands a little bit of more depth and connectivity as compared to GS. Right? GS is general studies. As I already told you that it will check your width, but optional will check your depth. And depth can, be achieved not only through enriched content or the keywords that you pick. Depth is also reflective in the flow of the answer that you make. Right? It is also reflective in the organization that you do. Right? It is also reflective in the originality, because that requires deep thinking. Fine. So do not just think that you have to replicate whatever we have done in the class. It is a holistic view that you have to take while reading the answer. Whatever knowledge you have acquired, just take it as an instrument that will be helpful in writing what UPSC is asking. So for answer writing, whatever knowledge you have gained, it will be helpful in building that perspective, right? But the answer is much beyond your mere content and, revision and your, learning of your notes and the gist that you have made. Of course, it is very important because that will give you flow. That will help you, write those keywords. But for rest of the things, that practice is required. And every Sunday we'll be doing that. You will yourself feel very confident after 3-4 sessions, right? Because after, I guess, the third session or the fourth, no, the third, the fourth session will be on your, in that session, we will be doing the questions in the class itself. I will not be giving you the questions beforehand. You will be in a position to sit down for 10 minutes for each and every answer, and then we will be discussing, right? So with that, let's start. And we have another individual joining us. It is Biak. Hello, Biak. How are you? Probably some network issue. Let's wait for a minute. Am I audible, Biak? So let's start. The first, what do you think while attempting the answers for her? What do I do? Let's start then, right? She can join. There are many students who have joined the course, but they all wish to see everything in the recording. Right? So I would encourage you all, because you would be seeing the recording at some point in time, I would encourage you all to join the class, right? So that it becomes participative and can be a learning experience. Sure. There are many people, many students who have completed their courses from other institutions also. So it would be a mixed learning for everybody. It would be a good experience if you all join in the live classes. Right. So let's start. So starting with the points that you have to keep in mind while you are writing any answer. First thing would be the organization. You need to organize your answer well. आपके जो thoughts हैं, they should be very clear cut and simple, right? So that the examiner is able to make out sense of what you are writing, what you are trying to express, right? Then, as I tell you, depth has to be there because it is the option. So revise the things. This is where your keywords and your gist will help you out. It will help you in, as I say, the gist will act as a schema, a mental shortcut, which will help you write a good answer, because only then it can be organized and it can come in flow. Because when you know that, okay, these are the things that I need to put in the answer, so you can very well organize it and flow can be attained, right? Then another important thing is that your introductions and conclusions, they have to be very reflective and balanced, right? And the next thing that you have to keep in mind is balance in the answer. Right? By balance, I do not mean that you will write 5 negative points and 5 positive points. That balance points out towards the bureaucratic traits that are expected from you. The answer has to be based on facts. आपका objectivity reflect होना चाहिए, right? You should be speaking out and talking about, I would say, the neutrality that is expected out of you. It should be reflective that all the sections of the society are being addressed. You are able to connect it with GS. You are able to put in your daily observations, right? And so all these things, I feel that you would understand with course of time. Just to start the lecture by giving you a short overview that these are the things that we are looking. These are mere words if you are not practicing them out. So you will ultimately realize that when through the classes, through the discussions, we'll be, taking up things, all these things would be automatically flowing in, right? So let's first of all start with a question that is on the behavioristic perspective. Because UPSC would be asking you general questions also. It would be asking you specific questions also. And wherein the UPSC is being generalistic in its question, जैसे ये है आपका, how has behavioristic perspective enriched our understanding about human behavior? It is encompassing a lot of things. So over here, you have the opportunity to show how creative you are. You have the opportunity to link your answers with GS. Right? And this is how we would see. So first of all, I would like to hear you out. क्या आप लोगों ने क्या क्या लिखा है? Let me share the screen. So who would like to start? Let's start with Mukta then. So what did you write, Mukta? Don't be afraid. You have already taken a lot of steps by joining the class live. How has behavioristic perspective enriched okay, somebody else would like to start? It was a good start, right? But Mukta, what I felt is देखिए यही हमें समझना है. आपने जो आंसर लिखा, the problem was that you are writing mere facts. Your language of the answer is not seen in the form of representing what the question is asking you. आपने very good, you talked about Thorndike, you talked about Watson, you talked about Skinner, you talked about environment determining human behavior. This is what are the key terms that we have to write. But we have to learn that all these things should be in flow. Answer should not look like mere key points that we have you have read. ठीक है, उसका एक फ्लो और एक स्ट्रक्चर होना चाहिए, वो अभी हम समझेंगे. बट नॉनदलेस इट वाज अ गुड एफर्ट. नेक्स्ट मनोज, डिड यू अटेम्प्ट द आंसर? डिड यू राइट? फ्लो मतलब अभी समझ में आएगा. हमें अपना कोई भी पॉइंट लिख रहे हैं, यू हैव टू कीप इन माइंड द लैंग्वेज ऑफ द क्वेश्चन, दैट हाउ हैज इट एनरिच्ड आवर अंडरस्टैंडिंग. So answer should look like that these things happen and this is how we started to view behavior as. Human behavior के बारे में हमको ये चीज समझ में आई, human behavior के बारे में हमको ये चीज समझ में आई. Right? You have to mold your statements a little bit to just bring the answer on track. Getting the point? ठीक है, अभी मैं जब समझाऊंगी तब समझ में आएगा. रक्षाना?
Yes, ma'am. I wrote, contribution of several behaviorists and their perspectives have enriched and provided a new understanding to human behavior. Early behaviorists like Thorndike gave the concept of trial and error, law of effect, and mentioned how satisfaction and discomfort led to the successful behaviors being stamped and unsuccessful behaviors stamped out, which directs individuals to adaptability. John Watson, the father of behaviorism, then gave the ideas through the Behaviorist Manifesto. He said behaviors should be measured objectively and only overt behaviors matters. He stressed how environmental determinism impacts human behavior, which then led to SR psychology and behavior. B.F. Skinner gave instrumental conditioning and helped understand how reinforcement and punishments help shape and alter human behavior and adaptation. Tolman gave the understanding of purposive behavior and mentioned how every understanding has a purpose and every behavior has a purpose and goal and is all goal oriented. He also gave the concept of intervening variables to make easy the understanding of SOR psychology. Hence, behaviorists helped us understand the concepts of observable stimulus response, the environmental determinism and how it shapes behavior. Behavior results from manipulation of environmental contingencies, the nurture factor, which very importantly shapes behavior of humans. All behavior has a reductionist approach, and behavioral understanding having a nomothetic approach, though individual differences exist.
Very good. The answer has structure, the answer has flow. Are you able to get the language? आंसर का हर चीज पॉइंट आउट कर रही है टुवर्ड्स our understanding about human behavior. Right? So, Rakshana, the answer that you have written, probably you will be getting a score of around 5.5 out of 10, if it is a 10 marker. Right? A very good score. But our endeavor is that we should take this to level of around 7, which is quite possible. और वो कैसे आएगा? Wherein you will be connecting to GS. Right? Let me read out what I have written, because I have written 1 or 2 answers so that you understand that how we have to frame the sentences that are just matching the language of the answer and not mere writing the facts that we have learned. Right? Although before the next class, I will be giving you few answers in writing also, so that you can look at them minutely and you will be able to understand. So what I have written is that while psychology was developing as a flourishing science with structuralist, functionalist, and psychoanalytical views, the behavioristic philosophy around 1930s in America brought new perspectives to offer that enriched our understanding about human behavior. Okay. Then objectivity, experimental research, and scientific outlook were the foundations on which behavioristic perspective rests. Because we know that they brought scientific outlook to psychology. It is because of the behavioristic perspective that psychology became to be known as a scientific study, right? So intelligently we have to put 3-4 keywords so that you are able to convey that it was a scientific subject. तो objectivity आई उसके साथ, and इससे पहले criticism क्या था, that you don't have experiments or research base backing your theories, right? So what they did was, jitne bhi behaviorists hain, all the focus was on experimental research. It was through lab experiments and other things that they were able to come out with certain laws and things, right? So objectivity, experimental research, and scientific outlook were the foundations on which behavioristic perspective rests. In fact, introduction में जो मैंने लिखा है, you can very well have your own introduction, उसमें कोई problem नहीं है, but don't make it too narrow. Try to bring in, just try to tell the examiner that that before your behavioristic school, I know that there were 3-4 other views that were there existing, right? So behaviorism, it was offered a new perspective altogether, which gave psychology a scientific status, right? So uske baad, now it all depends that how you address the question. To bring in organization, as I told you, and to bring in structure in the answer, what we can do is, you all know that 4-5 names you have to drop in from the behavioristic perspective. ठीक है, जैसे मनोज ने, अभिषेक ने, and you all told that early behaviorists, right? Then behaviorists, then neo behaviorists. So these are the key terms wherein you can divide the things. उसमें कोई problem नहीं है, right? It is all subjective. अगर आप उसमें भी नहीं करना चाहते, so you can pick up one thinker at a time, right? One psychologist, write about that person in 1 or 2 sentences. Because remember, the question is not asking you to elaborate on their what experiments they did in detail. जैसे अभिषेक आपने लिखा ना वो टोलमैन का rat maze वाला experiment, you are not supposed to write that in detail. ठीक है, आप रेफरेंस में ब्रैकेट में लिख दो, वो समझ जाएगा एग्जामिनर. आपका फोकस किस चीज पे होना चाहिए, that what new offering they had to give us about human behavior, about the nature of human behavior, right? अगर टोलमैन के ऊपर क्वेश्चन होता या आपका न्यू बिहेवियरिस्ट पे होता, then of course you could have written a paragraph on it. So the first thing you have to keep in mind is that you always have to limit yourself to the question that is being asked. So इसीलिए always, whenever you are reading the question, you have to read it thrice. Fine. Do not read it once. First reading would be very quickly, wherein you understand that yes, the question is asking about something about behavioristic school. Okay. So quickly read that. Then second thing that you would do is you would mark the keywords. Behavioristic perspective, right? Then understanding about human behavior. These are the 3 keywords. तो कोई भी आप psychologist लिखोगे, you just have to write in just about what he had to say about human behavior. That's it, right? Then you can start writing. So whenever you have covered half a page, try to revisit the question again, because with this 2 things will happen. You will not go off track. Second, you will not miss on any aspect. Otherwise, what happens is, while we are writing, because you have to manage that pressure also. So while we are writing, we tend to, अब जैसे टोलमैन है, कई बार क्या होता है प्रेशर में समझ में नहीं आ रहा, सो टोलमैन को ही लिख दिया, या स्किनर का रिसेंटली कोई चीज पढ़ी, राइट, सो 5-6 लाइंस उसके ऊपर लिख दी, दैट विल drift you towards some other thing. और फिर क्या होता है, because there is limited space, when you realize that only half a page is left, then you do all the things that are not required. Fine, वो confused sentences आएंगे, because you know that you have to write many things that you have missed. So always, be it GS, be it psychology, make it a point that you read the question thrice. First will be the broadest reading quickly. Second, mark the keywords. अब इसमें कीवर्ड ये नहीं कि आपने पर्सपेक्टिव कर लिया, अबाउट कर लिया, नो, दे आर आस्किंग यू अबाउट बिहेवियरिस्टिक स्कूल एंड हाउ इट हैज हेल्प्ड यू अंडरस्टैंड ह्यूमन बिहेवियर बेटर, दैट्स इट, ठीक है. एंड वन थिंग यू ऑल मिस्ड ऑन व्हाट, अभी हम थेरेपीज कर रहे हैं, that it's not only your normal behavior. Behavioristic perspective has offered through its principle the ability to treat maladaptive behavior as well, right? ये problem हो जाती है, you have to think broad and connect. Fine, चलिए, so always limit your thoughts to the question, utilize your knowledge, but you have to stick on what is being asked. Fine, चलिए. Then what I have written is, Thorndike demonstrated that human learning is a trial and error process and practice, bracket में लिखा है law of effect, ensures adaptability of individual to the environment. तो keywords trial and error भी डाल दिया, law of effect भी डाल दिया, adaptability भी डाल दिया, ठीक है. सो थॉर्नडाइक का यू कैन ऑलवेज राइट दैट अर्ली बिहेवियरिस्ट कॉमा थॉर्नडाइक, तो वो आपके हाथ में है, दैट हाउ यू यूज योर कीवर्ड्स, राइट. सो थॉर्नडाइक डेमोन्स्ट्रेटेड दैट ह्यूमन लर्निंग इज अ ट्रायल एंड एरर प्रोसेस. तो थॉर्नडाइक का रेफरेंस हमने दे दिया, वी टॉक्ड अबाउट ट्रायल एंड एरर प्लस लॉ ऑफ इफेक्ट, दैट इज प्रैक्टिस. सिंपल टर्म्स में लिखो कि हम बार बार ट्राई करने से भी ह्यूमंस दे लर्न, एंड थ्रू प्रैक्टिस, दैट इज लॉ ऑफ इफेक्ट, दे ultimate aim is adaptability. So through this they are able to adapt to their environment, that's it, right. Then next move on to Pavlov. उसने 3 लॉज दिए थे, इट्स ओके आप दूसरा लिख दो, बट ब्रैकेट में जो आपका मेन एम है दैट इज थ्रू प्रैक्टिस, कि हम बार बार ट्रायल एंड एरर कर रहे हैं, उससे हम पॉजिटिव उससे सीख रहे हैं, एंड देन वी आर प्रैक्टिसिंग एंड देन फाइनली वी आर लर्निंग समथिंग, राइट. तो उससे क्या हो रहा है आपका, यू आर अडेप्टिंग, राइट. वो लर्निंग के उसमें सर ने और स्पेसिफिक करवाया, तो इट्स अप टू यू, आप उस सेंस में लिख सकते हो, राइट. बट देखो इन छोटी चीजों से ना आपका आंसर में इंपैक्ट नहीं आएगा. द एग्जामिनर विल नॉट चेक के लॉ ऑफ इफेक्ट क्या है अनटिल एंड अनलेस आप बहुत बड़ा ब्लंडर कर रहे हो, ठीक है, क्लासिकल कंडीशनिंग को स्किनर के साथ जोड़ रहे हो, दैट इज अ प्रॉब्लम, राइट. सच थिंग्स व्हेन रिटन इन फ्लो दे आर इग्नोर्ड, राइट. सो दिस इज हाउ, इसीलिए बहुत माइन्यूट चीजों में नहीं जाना. आंसर पढ़ना है, वी हैव टू गो इन डेप्थ, वी हैव टू फोकस ऑन द माइन्यूट थिंग्स, व्हाई, दैट विल गिव यू कंसेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी. बट व्हेन यू आर राइटिंग, यू नो, सच माइन्यूट थिंग्स दे कैन बी इग्नोर्ड, राइट. थॉर्नडाइक के बाद you will talk about Pavlov. Then Pavlov discovered that experience through classical conditioning helps individual learn and build cause and effect relationships. That's it. ठीक है, बिकॉज देखो क्वेश्चन हमारा कंडीशनिंग का नहीं है, क्लासिकल कंडीशनिंग का नहीं है, इंस्ट्रूमेंटल कंडीशनिंग का नहीं है, टोलमैन की पर्पसिव लर्निंग का नहीं है, या लेटेंट लर्निंग का नहीं है. क्वेश्चन है दैट हाउ ऑल दीज थिंग्स हैव हेल्प्ड इन अंडरस्टैंडिंग ह्यूमन बिहेवियर. सो पैवलोव की स्टडीज से, राइट, और थ्रू हिज एक्सपेरिमेंट व्हाट डिड वी लर्न, दैट एक्सपीरियंस दैट वी गेन थ्रू classical conditioning and association, it helps us to understand cause and effect relationships, right. So हमने intelligently classical conditioning term use किया, we explained cause and effect. right? And we wrote the term experience, that is repeated trial के साथ, right? So this is how we talked about Pavlov, because 10 mark, ये question 10 में भी आ सकता है, 15 में भी आ सकता है, 20 में भी. That initially I did not give you marks. I did not focus on, that you should give some time limit also. Let the thoughts flow, because restriction तो हम कभी भी सीख सकते हैं. First, we need to put ourselves on track, right? Then I wrote is later, Watson showed through his famous Little Albert study that human behavior can be shaped by manipulating the environment. Right? Manipulation of environment. So this shifted the focus of subject matter of psychology only to observable behavior. That is SR perspective. Very clear and simple. Rather than talking about other things, we are just keeping things very simple. We have talked about practice, we have talked about trial and error, experience, observable behavior, right? Then next, I connected it with Skinner. Skinner popularized the idea that behavior is driven by immediate consequences. That is, positive reinforcement strengthens future behavior and negative reinforcement or punishment weakens it. These operant conditioning principles laid the foundations of successful psychotherapies, such as systematic desensitization, token economy, etc. This is how you will connect. Skinner का हम पूरा कुछ नहीं लिख सकते, but framing of the language is such that it is reflective of the question. Again, listen. Skinner popularized the idea that behavior is driven by immediate consequences. That is positive reinforcement and negative. So these operant conditioning. तो हमने operant conditioning भी word use कर दिया. Then we talked about positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and we connected it with psychotherapy or your treatment of maladaptive behavior. Clear? समझ में आया? Because the answer has to be, I told you, it has to be simple. And simplicity cannot be acquired only by mere term dropping. Fine? Chaliye. Then after Skinner, and I guess all of you missed on Bandura also. Right? Then Tolman, with his theory of purposive behaviorism, explained that all behavior was goal-oriented and had a purpose. Full stop. He added cognitions as an intervening variable between stimulus and response. This way, he acted as a bridge between behaviorism and cognitivist perspective. ठीक है, तो हमने purposive behaviorism की बात कर दी. Then we say, how did he enrich human understanding? By explaining that behavior was goal-oriented and it had a purpose. Fine. And this way, because हमने यहाँ पे SR perspective की बात करी है with Watson and Skinner, Tolman, he added cognitions as intervening variables. Right? Then next, how I connected is that language, suno that this way he acted as a bridge between behaviorism and cognitivist perspective. Further understanding about human behavior was enriched. Always remember that you have to use the keywords that are being asked in the question once or twice in the answer, so that examiner gets to know आपका जो focus है, एकदम जो आपसे पूछा जा रहा है आप उसका आंसर दे रहे हो. Right? So don't just rush to express your views, make it a point that you will write the keywords that are being asked in the question once or twice in the answer. ठीक है, क्योंकि अब बहुत देर से हमने उस सेंस में बात करी है. सो आई गेस आई यूज्ड इट इनिशियली इन द इंट्रोडक्शन और प्रोबेबली विद थॉर्नडाइक. राइट नाउ further understanding about human behavior was enriched with the works of Bandura. He views that humans learn through observation and vicarious reinforcement and punishment in social world. ठीक है, अभी तक हम कह रहे थे कि आपका ट्रायल एंड एरर है, आपकी एसोसिएशन है. But now Bandura says that it's not only mere all these stimulus and response connections. Individuals, they learn through observation also. तो उसने observation learning दी थी, right? Then he says that reinforcement can be indirect. That is vicarious. ब्रैकेट में मैंने indirect लिख दिया, तो एग्जामिनर समझ गया कि आपको पता है, right? You need not explain it completely, right? So humans learn through observation and vicarious reinforcement and punishment. Bracket indirect in the social world, because social learning theory दी है. So you have intelligently told the examiner that yes, I know that he is talking about our interrelations in the society and the social settings. Fine, because we have to be देखो, मैंने why did I pick up these questions? Because if I tell you that explain the theory of Pavlov or explain the theory given by Skinner, it's very easy. You all know the content and you can put it. Problem comes when the question is very general and broad and you have to squeeze the content into just 150 or 200 words. तो वहां पे क्या problem होती है? We tend to get diverted. So initially what I thought is that we have to focus on these particular aspects, wherein you should learn that how you need to put in relevant content. Right now, you might be seeing that you have read a lot about Pavlov, you have read a lot about Skinner, but are we using all the concepts here? No. So the demand of the question is flow. It is organization. Demand is understanding. This is reflective of your understanding about the topic or the concept. Clear? Then now comes the conclusion. Right, Rakshana, your conclusion was appropriate along the expected lines. Right? So then after Bandura, what I have done is I've written is all these cumulative efforts gave psychology a behaviorist perspective that focused on, right? एक जगह में सारे keywords अब लिख दो जो हमने पढ़े हैं. So let me read again. All these cumulative efforts gave psychology a behaviorist perspective that focused on environmental determinism, reductionist approach, nomothetic principle of conditioning in explaining observable behaviors. That's it. Right? So in the last, you have talked about the principles, because otherwise, mentioning, of course you can, or in the introduction also you can give all these things. It all depends upon you, right? Then now what I feel is, एक तो आप सबके आंसर में दो चीजें मिसिंग थी. One was the psychotherapy thing, the other was Bandura. Plus one more thing that you need to learn is that how you will connect GS over here. This is a very fine opportunity with such broad questions, right? So just listen and then we'll be understanding these things. Thus, behaviors ranging from hiring actors for government campaigns, bracket Amitabh Bachchan for Swachh Bharat, comma, imposing fine and punishments for disobeying rules, comma, treatment of maladaptive behavior, media highlights of successful sports persons, bracket role modeling, to aiming for civil services for public welfare, bracket purposive actions, can be explained through behavioristic principles. This is what you need to learn, right? Wherein you have intelligently talked about government schemes, because actually choosing some role model or actor for promoting some socially desirable behavior, it is nothing but association, right? Then आपका जो fine and punishments है for not obeying the traffic rules, it is an example of punishment, right? Skinnerian conditioning. Then treatment of maladaptive behavior through psychotherapy. Then media highlights of successful sports person. What we are doing? Social learning, Bandura. Because through role modeling, we tend to aspire to live like them or to behave like them, right? So media is working, or rather your advertising things are working on these principles only. And finally, the wherein I have written that aiming for civil services for public welfare. You have to drop in this keyword, which is an important bureaucratic trait that is required, right? Can be explained through behavioristic principles. You get the point? आपने दिखा दिया that yes, the broadest aim with which I am working, because your mains is what? Your projective test. But we have to manage this test and learn to project ourselves to get selected, right? At least learn, and I'm very sure that while learning all these things, you will be able to imbibe all these things into your character also, right? So this is how you have to address the answer. Are you all clear on what we have done? First, we have to get creative, right? Once you get to that position wherein you are able to write, let's say, 3 pages on anything, right? So it means you will have that mental rehearsal ready. कि क्वेश्चन आ गया तो मुझे इस डायरेक्शन में सोचना है. This is all what I have to fit in. This is all what I have to read. Or sorry, this is all what I have to write. So depending upon the question, I'm very sure that you will be able to contract or expand the writing. If the question is in 150 words, probably you can do away with the introduction. Straight away you can write that behavioristic perspective in 1930s, it added to our understanding about human behavior with the efforts of few psychologists. So Thorndike showed that learning can be acquired through trial and error and practice. Pavlov enriched our understanding by adding that experience and conditioning can help us understand cause and effect relationship. Watson's experiments gave SR perspective to psychology, and we focused on observable behavior, right? So with manipulation of the environment, human behavior can be altered. Skinner, through his operant conditioning principles, gave an important perspective to human understanding that punishment and negative reinforcement can influence your human behavior. Tolman took the perspective a step further by adding cognitions as intervening variables and giving purpose to behavior, or help us explain that behavior is carried out with some goal orientation and a purpose. Finally, Bandura enriched our understanding about human behavior by talking about indirect or vicarious reinforcement and punishment, and learning through observation. So all these principles can be used to explain the association of film actors or important personalities to government campaigns, comma, your fines and punishments for imposing fines and punishments for your learning traffic rules, right? Highlighting the role of successful entrepreneurs or women athletes to sensitize people, right? And also an aspirant aiming for civil services for the purpose of public welfare. Full stop. I guess whatever I have spoken would not be more than 150 or 180 words. So this is how you will write. और अगर ये आंसर आ जाता है 15 words में, sorry, 15 marks. So after Bandura, you can add on that paragraph also about the key terms, that is environmental determinism, reductionist approach, nomothetic approach, इस तरह से, right? Or if you feel that you have time, what you can do is you can make a sun diagram, because the words in the diagram are not counted. Diagrammatic representation में जो भी लिखोगे, those words are out of 150 words. They are not cut in the word limit, right? So यहाँ पे लिख दो that behavior perspective or the behavioristic principles, reductionist approach, your nomothetic approach, your reciprocal determinism, all these things, observable behavior. That's it. So it will not take more than 5-6 words, plus the answer will become visually also appealing. So देखो, इसमें से अगर आप, I would say, even if you write 60% of the things, still you will be scoring 6. But because my expectation from you is, a little bit high, and I want to prepare you for the best, so that at least अगर आप इतना भी perform करके आओगे, you will be nearing 290 for sure, right? So let's learn to stretch our limits. Otherwise, you are, of course, you will reach here, no problem, right? So dhire dhire, because there will be probably 8 such classes that we will be doing, right? So this is just the first question and the beginning, right? It always is goal oriented and has a purpose. वो तो चलो उसने animal learning के through find किया, but of course we are generalizing the principles onto humans, and when we know that we are striving for civil services, then why to think only small? Why not big? Talk about the biggest things, right? So इसी वजह से जो आपके ethics है, ethics के syllabus के जो keywords हैं, do not forget to use them in psychology, right? So आपका पब्लिक वेलफेयर है, आपका एम्पथी है, मतलब जो आपका सिलेबस टॉपिक है, इनफैक्ट उन्हीं को ही अच्छे से याद कर लो. ट्राई टू ड्रॉप ऑल दीज थिंग्स, ऑब्जेक्टिविटी, योर नॉन पार्टिजनशिप, ऑल दीज थिंग्स यू हैव टू डिस्प्ले. फाइन, यू गेटिंग द पॉइंट? चलिए, गुड. सो लेट्स मूव ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. जो आपका फेवरेट है, that you all enjoyed writing, that is, what is schema? How does it facilitate our adjustment in the environment? So Manoj, what did you write? You searched the net and you are about to bring a very heavy answer in front of us.
Not that much heavy, ma'am, but
पहले तो you will be answering what is schema, right? Then how do they facilitate your adjustment with the environment? So in the answer, make it a point that you are connecting schema and adjustment. This is what the examiner is asking you. So whatever you are writing, जैसे behaviorist, पिछले question में we were focusing on that how did we understand the human behavior better? What new learnings or what new information was added to our study of human behavior? So similarly, over here, what the theme of the question has to be that how does it facilitate your adjustment? So wherever you are connecting, please ensure that you are setting the link between schemas and adjustment. Right? And in fact, this question can be beautifully answered using few flowcharts also. Right? Wherein if you feel that you are falling short of things, falling short of time, right? Plus you have a lot to connect and write. So उस केस में क्या होता है, if you are just writing in sentences, you will definitely cross the word limit. So if you are writing, let's say 5 points, right? Like Rakshana, you try to connect on different aspects. What you can do is in 3 points, you can write in the sentences. And in every alternate point, you can express the same idea using a flowchart. Fine. So with this, let's first understand what a schema is. अगर आपको नहीं भी पता, there is no such, do not feel that words are not coming into the pen. You have read a lot of psychology. अब तो हमने almost कर लिया है. So schemas are what? These are actually your the mental templates or the categories that our mind creates, so that we are able to structure our concepts better. We are able to interpret the world objectively, right? Or rather, interpret the world in a meaningful manner, right? So basically, आपका जो schema है, एक simple terms में, what is it? These are cognitive shortcuts. अब जैसे टोलमैन में, अभिषेक आपने अभी टोलमैन का वो रैट वाला मेज बताया, राइट? उसी से कनेक्ट कर लो. जो रैट्स थे, व्हाट दे वर मेकिंग, they were actually making some sort of representation or cognitive map of the whole maze. So कर क्या रहे थे actually में? They were making the schema. That is a diagrammatic overview. Right? So schemas are nothing but these are your cognitive maps and shortcuts, so that we are quickly able to make sense of the world. Right? अब जैसे behavioristic perspective है. If in the class I am asking you, tell me the 5 keywords or the key principles actually, और आप मुझे वो 5 keywords बता रहे हो, what is that you are displaying is use of the schemas. राइट? अदरवाइज वो 5-6 पेज में हमने जो पूरा बिहेवियरिस्टिक स्कूल किया है, आपने उसको जिस्ट में कन्वर्ट किया. So what you are doing is you are creating a cognitive shortcut so that you are able to interpret your environment better, so that you are able to draw inferences quickly. So the key word would be that they are acting as heuristics. They guide you to take action quickly, to make effective decisions. ठीक है? Because हमारी जो ह्यूमन मेमोरी है, I would say because of, and आपके जो schemas हैं, they are the result of your interactions with the environment. हर इंसान का schema different होगा. So they are subjective organizations of concepts and experiences of an individual. That's it. कुछ टेक्निकल नहीं हमें याद करना, बट वी हैव टू शो टू द एग्जामिनर दैट वी आर सिंप्लीफाइंग द थिंग्स फॉर यू. आपको समझ में आ रहा है. फाइन. सब्जेक्टिव ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, हर इंडिविजुअल का स्कीमा डिफरेंट होगा. प्लस दे आर acting as cognitive maps, they are acting as cognitive shortcuts to guide your actions, right? Then they are helping you in your attitude formation, they are helping you in decision making. Fine. So initially you would be writing these things. So कोई भी आपके इंडिविजुअल का जो मेंटल स्ट्रक्चर है that one uses to organize his knowledge is known as your schema. Easy. This is the most generative question that you can display. Students would be, just thinking in terms of the bookish knowledge that they have gained. हमने schema कहाँ पढ़ा था? Okay, what did we write in the notes? So we need to replicate that. That this is so constructive that just merely by one keyword you can write the whole answer, right? Now just think and tell me, because the question is that how does it facilitate our adjustment? So what all functions would schemas be doing, or schemas can be a basis for what? Because you have to maintain the connect between the two aspects that are being asked. We have to cleverly take the definition of schema towards adjustment. The flow will be maintained in the answer. So we can always say that schemas are the categories that involve the structure of concepts that guide your human inferences, interpretations, etc. जो भी हमने शुरू में लिख दिया है. Then, as Manoj said, if you have time, you can write that the schema is because हमारे experiences से बनता है. I would say expectations from particular individuals or schemas are what? They help you in creating expectancies. Schema about other individuals, that how an ideal friend would be like, right? How an ideal younger brother has to behave. What is the schema of a mother? How an ideal mother should be like. So दूसरे लोगों का schema. Then you have concepts about yourself. That is, this is the way that you perceive yourself. This is what I like. This is what I dislike. So schemas about your own self. Then you have schemas about certain roles. Right? What behavioral expectations different roles have. What is the schema of a teacher? What is the schema of a doctor? Schema of a mother, that what roles they have to carry, right? And others last could be schemas about any particular situation, right? If you are going to a marriage, this is how, or these are the behavioral standards that you need to behave in, right? If you are going for a sorrowful function, for or some sort of negative event that you are going to attend, so over there, what is the expected behavioral standards? So क्या होता है, इंसान उसी तरह से अपने आप को बिहेव करता है, right? Clear? अभिषेक, are you getting the point? समझ में आ रहा है बच्चे कि स्कीमा है क्या? कुछ भी नहीं है एक्चुअली में. These are the way we have organized our experiences in our head. उनकी जो learnings हमने करी हैं, they are what? The schemas. So what will the schema? So after writing all these definitions, right, then broadly we can say that schemas can be divided into these 4 heads. And then to create that connect between the first part and the second part, what we will do is we can drop in the keywords that will initially, because I guess all these things would be done in the first page of the answer. Then in the on the second page, the first half has to portray certain keywords which shows to the examiner that you have connected the things to all different areas. एक perception से, एक attention से, right? Then through emotions. So try to pick up all these keywords because schemas are the basis of each and everything, right? So the basis of, or rather, you can say that schemas, they act as a basis for what? Your expectations. Right? ये जो हमने categories दिमाग में बनाई हैं, what are they? They are acting as basis for expectations. Clear? Then action orientation, or simply actions, right? Then perceptual readiness. Right? Suppose you're reading some book that are expected from an answer, right? And somebody tells you that this is the best answer that some individual has written, please go through it. So with the learnings and the trust that you have in the classes, you have that mindset, okay, these are the things that I need to expect. तो आपने पहला ही पेज पढ़ के you feel that it is drifting away from the required standard, it's just using fancy language. तो क्या होगा, next answers को approach करते वक्त you won't be having that readiness to read. You will say, okay, fine, all good, very well written, thank you so much. Right? So schemas, they are a basis for your perceptual readiness and your attention. Fine? Then they are a basis for your organization and selectivity. You just have to think about the different things that we have read, right? And then finally, ये जो keyword हमने use किया था, they are the basis for your heuristics, mental shortcuts. Remember, UPSC में, I told you, the intelligent guesses that we make are probably because of the healthy or the enriched schemas that you are making in the course of your preparation. You will never be able to memorize the complete book. You will not be able to memorize Baron. You will not be able to memorize my notes or anybody else's notes. Rather, now they are your notes, right? So you won't be able to memorize them completely. What you are creating is the schemas, cognitive mind maps. Fine. So they will help you take decisions quickly. So they are the basis for your decision making. They are the basis for your attitudes. Clear? So this is what is required. You are connecting things. आपने attention से भी लिख दिया, आपने perception से भी लिखा. You are talking about memory also, right? You're talking about perception, organization. So these are the basis, and this is how, on the basis of these, they guide our actions, which take us towards adjustment. Fine. So this is how you can write a thing. Before we discuss how do they facilitate. Yes, Manoj? Because your experience in the introduction, I told you that subjective organization of concepts and experiences of an individual, and then you can add on a line that schemas are a result of your experiences in a particular culture and a context. Right? So इसी वजह से they are subjective. Fine. There are certain general schemas and expectations, plus there are certain subjective experiences too. Clear? Dekhiye, if by chance you don't know these, the 4 types, that's completely okay, right? Then if you feel that at that point in time you're not able to write these things, so what you will do is you can use a very, very simple flow chart. This is where the students miss on. It's not always a very heavy and a fancy answer. You have to be logical in your thoughts, right? I told you that you need to connect schema and adjustment. So what you can do is, after writing about your understanding about the concept of schema in half a page, what you can do is, to show the maintain the flow and the connect, you can draw this simple flow chart that an individual, he has his own experience, concepts, and learnings in particular cultural environment. Fine. That leads to formation of schemas or categories of information. That these categories and schemas, what do? They guide his actions. Fine, of course, they will guide your actions. And finally, it will lead to what? You have to, I told you, use the keyword of the question. It will lead to adaptation to the environment. Clear? It is this easy. बस intelligently आपको क्या करना है? You have to connect what is being asked. So, schema and adaptation needs to be connected. Adaptation or adjustment in the environment. Clear? You got the point? So do not worry if you don't know that what are the 4 types of schemas, or it is the basis for expectation, anticipation. Of course, with practice, all these words will come. But to initially start, if they, do not stress yourself too much that you have to think of all these words. Let them be. Nahi kuch dimag mein aa raha, it's okay. What you have to do is, as an intelligent member of this psychology community, you have already read a lot. You just need to pick up the question, free dimag se try to write the answer. That's it. Believe me, you will be quite successful than those who are just mere focusing on reproducing any type of content. You need to think. Fine. Now, how will schemas facilitate? Right. So these points can also be understood using flowcharts. Okay? Or you can frame it into sentences, your wish. So first thing is, simple thing, हमें पता है schemas से क्या होगा? It will lead to organization of information. That will, when the information is organized in your memory, it will lead to what? Better interpretations. Of reality. Easy. So if interpretation is better, what will it lead to? Effective conclusions. If the conclusions are effective, you will make well-informed decisions. If the decisions are well informed, they are rational. So it is pointing towards what? You will be able to better adjust to the environment. So it will facilitate our adjustment with environment. Clear? What am I doing? Connecting schemas and adjustment. This is the key to answer writing. Do not only rush behind writing the content. You have to address what is being asked. Clear? Okay. So what you have done is, you have it in your mind that schemas, they are helpful in decision making. Very basic, easy terms, right? So intelligently try to just stretch a bit and connect it with using key terms. Then, because this will be reflective of your understanding if you are writing it in this manner. Then the second thing, decision making humne kar liya. Now we have to talk about, I told you that these are the cognitive shortcuts, mental maps, right? So they are helpful in what? So let's try to write down. Schemas, they will aid your concept formation and categorization. Right? It gives us the ability to remember the gist. What will it lead to? Cognitive economy. That will finally lead to enhanced performance. अब अगर complete psychology आपको, you are able to write it in 20-30 pages, right? Complete paper, each unit in 2 pages, right? So 40-50 pages complete psychology. It will give you the ability to remember the gist. Cognitive economy, wherever the need be, you'll be able to retrieve the complete mind map of the thing. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे mind map लिख लो, anything depending upon what you are able to think upon at that point in time. So it will lead to, of course, enhanced performance. You'll be able to answer each and everything. Fine. And when your performance is enhanced in the environment, it means it is facilitating your adjustment. So it will lead to increased adjustment in the surroundings. Clear? So what we are doing, we are connecting schemas and we are connecting adjustment in the environment. Right? What basically we are doing, we are addressing the demand of the question. You're getting the point, everybody? Abhishek, Manoj, Mukta, Rakshana? Right? Chalo, good. We can always create a link between that. Isi form mein, let's try to write that down. So how will it be? So with schema, we create expectancies. On the basis of our expectancies, that if you are going for a function, right? Let's say a social gathering or the marriage of a friend. So there are certain expectations. So using those expectations, we take appropriate actions and relevant behavior. So with all these experiences, you realize that, okay, there are some let's say additions and subtractions that you have learned. While entering into the marriage, you understood that I will make it a point that be it anybody's marriage, if the time is 8 o'clock, I will be there at 8:30. Otherwise, I will be there receiving the barat myself. Fine. So this is the learning. Otherwise, all throughout your life, you say that no, if the time is 8, I will be there at 8. So, but in social gatherings, you understand that, okay, half an hour you need to, you can take that leverage. So what is happening? Accommodation and assimilation of new learnings and concepts. Right? With this, what will happen? It gives us the power of what? Person, environment, fit. Just try to use few keywords like cognitive economy, person, environment, fit, satisfaction. Because very well right that before person, environment, fit, assimilation and accommodation will lead to what? Enhanced life experiences and satisfaction. And that will lead to further person, environment, fit. Right? Look, this is the creativity that you can add on. I'm just giving you the direction to think. Right? Try to use all these words wherever the opportunity comes. And in fact, over here, you can write Piaget in the bracket. Wherever you're writing about memory, you can write about Bartlett, because these are the two people who had talked about schemas in their work. Okay, so this depends upon आपको उस समय पे क्या याद आ रहा है. But my point over here is that you need to meet the demand of the question. Do not merely rush behind, I have not read about schema. I don't know what are the types of schemas. Doesn't matter. But you have read psychology, you have understood the subject, then why not bring it onto the pen? Have confidence in your abilities. Right? Because हर चीज आपकी पढ़ी हुई नहीं आ सकती. This is the creativity that you have to create. Right? Then we have talked about person, environment, fit. Then let's discuss one more aspect wherein we have talked about, creating new schemas, adaptation, everything. We have talked about memory, organization of information, decision making, your concept formation. Let's talk about our own self also. We have to show to the examiner that you are checking me on my personality aspects. So let me tell you something about me, right? So intelligently, you have to show yourself. Fine. So schemas, or you can say self schema, leads to what? If you know that, okay, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. So it means there is increased self-awareness. It will lead to increased self-awareness. If the awareness is high, so no or less role ambiguity. You are showing to the examiner that, listen, I'm very self-aware. I know what role I have to play. No ambiguities. This will lead to what? Increased self-esteem and self-efficacy. And finally, the person who has high self-belief in his abilities, his capabilities, is high on self-confidence, is of course able to better adjust to the environment. So this will lead to what? Better adjustment to environment. Fine. So very intelligently, you have to put in all these things. Fine. So now I hope your understanding about the schemas is good, right? You are able to understand what I'm trying to put across. And if you are writing all these things, now do not think that it is very essential that you have to write the conclusion. Right? Because you have written a lot. You have already enriched the things, because otherwise kya hoga fir, then you will be compromising with the other answers. So what we have to do is, एक line आप लिख सकते हो that it is the plasticity of schemas that help us gain new experiences in life, to modify our inferences, our expectations, and better adjust into the environment. So, एक plasticity of schema को underline कर दो, your job is done. Right? Because it will become very, difficult to justify the complete paper then. Right? So keep your minds free. जो भी आपके, I would say, whatever is going on around in the market, Sakshi always keeps me telling, ma'am, ye ho gaya, ma'am, ho gaya. She's always very concerned about the students. Ma'am, us group mein ye ho raha hai, ma'am, us group mein ye ho raha hai. Ma'am, just relax, let people talk whatever they want to. Right? My job is that I have to do the right thing that I feel is correct. Fine. So do not go by all, what fancy things are going around. आंसर राइटिंग में ये होना चाहिए, आंसर राइटिंग में वो होना चाहिए, हम कौन सा मटेरियल रेफर करें. This is, and today probably seeing you for, or other students, they might be busy because of some tests and all. I'm very happy that at least my students are able to turn up. We had a lot of people joining this course from other institutions who have completed their foundation, but they want to see only the recorded lectures. No confidence to participate. जहां पे participation की बात आती है, that you will be, you will have to switch on the video, you will have the audio rights, and you will be speaking in front of ma'am. They say, okay, we'll see, we are busy somewhere else, we are doing that. So just have that confidence that you are already ahead in the competition. Now what you have to do is, you have to pick up all these things. Fine. Or ensure that these learnings you are transferring to your GS answer writing as well. Fine. देखिए, आंसर राइटिंग वही है, थोड़ा सा अप्रोच डिफरेंट होगा, बिकॉज जीएस में यू हैव टू राइट जनरल पॉइंट्स, यहाँ पे थोड़ी सी डेप्थ आएगी, बट अंडरलाइंग आंसर राइटिंग इज ऑलमोस्ट द सेम. फाइन. सो लर्न कि मुझे अपना माइंडसेट किस तरह का बनाना है. इट इज essential even before writing. आपने पढ़ लिया है, 60% of the job is done, but for the rest 40%, your mindset will direct you what you will be writing. Fine. So just enjoy answer writing. Right? Chalo. So moving on to the next question. Your understanding before understanding the content. What does it point towards? Human memory is not like a tape recorder. Critically evaluate. Who all wrote this answer? Abhishek, Rakshana, Manoj. So let's start with A. Abhishek.
Yes, ma'am.
Missing है वो मैं अभी बताती हूँ. Let me hear other people. Manoj. A statement is given and they are asking you to critically evaluate. Just 2 lines wherein you are showing that human memory, sometimes it can act as a tape recorder if the need be. So you have to write in few such situations, such as wherein? Where does it act like a tape recorder? This whole event is recorded as it is. Right? Least construction. So it is almost like a tape recorder. Plus, if the demand of the situation is such that you have to reproduce exactly what you are encoding and storing. So there, the human memory acts as a tape recorder, such as test of recall, wherein, for example, your spelling bee competitions, it is an international competition wherein you have to, आपका जो spell check है, if I'm asking you to spell out human, you all will be saying HUMAN. So you are replicating what is required. Fine. So over there, human memory, depending upon the situation, it might have to act like a tape recorder so as to meet the demands of the situation. So this is the angle where you are missing. You just focused on what was written, evaluate, wherein the question itself is asking you to write both the sides. So you have to write. But when I say, even in GS, wherein you are writing an answer, you have to write an example. You have to write any case study that you know about that particular topic, right? You have to write a balanced answer. What does a balanced answer mean? That if you're writing 80% of the positive things, in the conclusion, do write some negatives or some challenges that needs to be overcome. So अपने आप में ही आंसर critically evaluate हो गया. So each and every answer, you have to write in this term so that it looks balanced. You are, showing that you are capable of applying it by writing some example, by connecting it with some current event, current happening, any particular scheme, any particular, case that has happened in the recent situation, right? So ultimately, with practice, you will realize, it's not fair to say to any student, who comes and they will say, okay, ma'am, what are you saying? You are just reducing the things to, the same level. Maximum teachers would be saying that if it is evaluate, this is what you have to focus. If it is discuss, this is what you have to focus. But believe me, writing 20 questions and focusing on discuss and evaluate will rob the theme of the question from you. You will not be able to concentrate. So if the question is saying critically evaluate, then write both the sides explicitly, because it means they will be giving you some statement. उसके दोनों साइड लिखो, right? And if it is discuss, evaluate, illustrate, follow the same structure in the answer. That will ease out your mind, right? It will take off a lot of burden that students take on their head. You know, they spend 5 minutes on understanding this keyword, whether it is discuss, whether it is evaluate, whether it is this, that. When you are sitting in that tough situation, you know, wherein you have to manage the shivering that is happening, the cold that you are feeling, you know, the table chair of the probably 5th or 6th standard on which you are sitting, because government schools mein mains likhoge to aise hi hoga, your knees will not fit in, right? When you are managing all the stress, and one a foolish examiner who would be talking to the co-examiner, acha, you know, I remember, you know, when I was writing mains, one female teacher, she was like, आजकल बहुत ठंड हो गई है, आपको पता है वहां पे सेल चल रही है, वहां पे आप स्वेटर ले लो. आई वाज लाइक, ओ गॉड मैम, कैन यू प्लीज गेट आउट. सेल चल रही है, हम लोगों की सेल लगा दोगे आप लोग. Can you please keep quiet? And by the chance if you get the first seat, so you know, it becomes very, very difficult. So you are managing a lot, not only you know, the paper, but these external stimulus on everything. So over there, when you have to manage all these things, please do not focus on whether it is discuss, evaluate. Question पढ़ो, जो समझ में आ रहा है उसको लिख दो. We know that it should be balanced. There should be an illustration. There should be an example. Anyhow, you are doing the same thing. Fine. Except when it is critically evaluated, you have to write both the sides because it is asking you to do so. Fine. So keep this thing clear in your head. Ultimately, these words will, you know, hamper answer writing, nothing else. Just focus on the question, what it is asking. Write down. Okay? This people realize after 1 or 2 attempts. Focus करते रहते हैं, last का keyword, पूरा answer हाथ से निकल जाता है. Fine. So you people do not do that mistake. Things which you would have to justify the last end, because human memory, like a tape recorder, बहुत कम instances होंगे. वो हमें पता है. We have talked about flashbulb memories. We have talked about certain tests of recall, wherein you need to reproduce exact things. Your, I would say, recitation competitions, wherein you have to recite a poem or a song or anything, or, you know, I would say, singing out your national anthem, any word. आप उसमें कुछ ऐड नहीं कर सकते. आपका कुछ भी मन कर रहा हो, you will have to, you know, stick to that. If you are reading the preamble of the Constitution, you will be reading out the preamble anyhow. You cannot add, subtract, or shift words here and there. So those are few aspects which require what? Wherein the information has to be stored like a tape recorder or a video recorder, because the situations or the context demands you to do so, right? This is how you will write. Plus, you all have talked about, you know, Bartley's work, wherein people are using their expectations, past experiences, priorities, and the current demands to encode and retrieve information, right? So there is complete, I would say, logic behind saying that your human memory undergoes constructive and adaptive processes so as to adjust to the given situation, right? So then you would be talking about Bartley, you would be talking about the constructive reconstructive processes, then you would be shifting by, because you need to balance the answer, that if these constructive reconstructive processes are not adaptive and accurate, it would lead to what? It would lead to errors and illusions. And in errors and illusions, you would be talking about eyewitness testimony, right? And Rakshana, it is not Lotus, it is Loftus. Elizabeth Loftus, right? Loftus. So with her work, it shows that exposure to any inaccurate information after the event, it might also alter your memories, and this would lead to misinformation effect, imagination inflation, and what? Your formation of false memories. ठीक है, यहाँ तक ठीक हो गया. Then following that it is stored like a tape recorder. I told you flashbulb memories, your spelling bee competitions, you would be writing that. But in the introduction, I want you to also talk about what? That the question points towards what? It points towards generativity of memory. It points towards creativity of memory, right? You have to talk about the self-generation effect that was given by Slameka and Graf. We had talked about it in the memory chapter, wherein it says that information is better remembered when it is self-generated as opposed to passive learning. तो आप लोग जो live class attend कर रहे हो, you are doing what? Self-generation. Others would be doing it passively. So it points towards generativity, it points towards creativity, it points towards plasticity of memory, and one important thing, that it is bringing into picture the level of processing that we do. So it's talking about individual differences that can have an impact on memory. ठीक है, ये चीजें आप लिखोगे, generativity of memory, creativity of memory, right? All these words in the introduction. Then for the conclusion, and in fact your level of processing and your individual differences, they point towards what? अभी अभिषेक ने एक बार टोल मैन की बात कर दी, अब हर समय मुझे टोल मैन का ध्यान आ रहा है. So over here I'm able to connect that this statement also points towards the role of organismic variables between stimulus and response. Because if it is the story of stimulus and response, so then human memory perhaps would become a tape recorder. Because every stimulus, same stimulus would have same response in the individuals. But because your cognitions, your past experiences, your priorities, your expectations, they are playing a role. So your individual differences and your organismic variables, they point towards the what? That human memory does not work like a tape recorder or a video recorder. Clear? And in the conclusion, what you can do is you need to think big. Right? How? You can say that it is malleability of memory or the plasticity, modifiability of memory that helps us in what? Particularly three things. One is it helps us in adaptability in life. Right? It is probably because of this nature of memory that we are able to learn new things. We are able to adapt depending upon the situation. Right? And second thing is, it is helpful in what? In updating of the information in the environment. Otherwise, we would be mere robots. एक बार जो information fit in हो गई, thing is done. But with life experiences, we are updating ourselves with new informations. We are having that ability to assimilate and accommodate. Where is it coming from? Probably the changeable nature of memory. So it helps us make sense of our ever-changing environment. Fine. And finally, the third thing that I feel this malleability or this changing nature of memory offers us is what? It helps us, or it acts as a foundation for treatment of mental illness. Don't you think? Because otherwise we would never be talking about the concepts such as cognitive restructuring or unlearning of your addictions, right? Or letting go of specific memories such as your post-traumatic stress disorders, PTSD, जो war के बाद soldiers को feel होता है, right? Because otherwise, if one's memories are formed, तो कभी भी याद करेंगे उसी form में याद आएगा. But it is this changeable nature, we are able to let go of the negative memories that we cling on to. So it gives us what? Foundation for your mental illnesses and conditioning to new and adaptive behaviors. Clear? तो इस तरह से आप conclusion लिखोगे. Fine. Then you can also somewhere in the answer you can also divide. जैसे अभिषेक ने कुछ उसको divide करने की कोशिश की थी. You can always say that your basically malleability means that additional information and your beliefs, they can invade the memories and they can perhaps alter them. So if it is natural, it is seen in the form of your construction and reconstruction, right? And it is seen in the form of your autobiographical memories where construction is taking place. Plus, it can also be motivated forgetting, wherein stressful events are deliberately forgotten. We are erasing the memories from our psyche, wherein they are so traumatic that we tend to erase them. And we are pushing them into the unconscious, right? तो कहीं ना कहीं आप वो connect कर सकते हो. And addition to this, in fact, although we cannot write this in context of this question, but you can always think, if the framing of the question is different, you can also think about adding on things like your Alzheimer's, psychological disorders, right? Because this is what, with natural aging, the memory traces the change. Fine. So your drug-induced memories, your amnesia. So all these things are what? Pointing towards alterations of memory. So कहीं ना कहीं इन चीजों, इस एंगल को भी आप क्वेश्चन में ला सकते हो if the question demands. But over here, I don't think so we'll be able to justify writing this, because then it will just be a mere show of content, right? And this we are not to do at any cost. कितना भी कंटेंट दिमाग में है, अगर वो आपके आंसर को जस्टिफाई नहीं कर रहा है, right? So we are not to write that. My little one, he's calling me mommy, mommy. So this is how you will write the answer. You got how you are to address different things. So purposely I had picked up all these questions. First was behavioristic perspective, very general, wherein you have to show all the things you are capable of, right? Then second, schema. The learning that we did was what? We have to learn to connect what is being asked. And over here, you have to understand that if the question is demanding you, you need to balance both the things, right? And finally, the conclusion has to be very, I would say, broad enough, which shows that you have a perspective in mind. You are not just focusing on minute things, right? You are talking about adaptability. You are talking about, ever-changing environment, updating yourself, because these are the keywords that will reflect your personality. Fine. So इस तरह से आपको आंसर्स लिखने हैं. Clear? Happy? Sure. Next is your question on the top-down and bottom-up theories of perception. Very, very clear. We had discussed it clearly in the class, right? So I would like to hear from you people. How do we give meaning to our environment, right? So new learning is that whenever there is a question on difference, try to write down in this format, because it will give your answer a very simple outlook. The examiner would be able to focus on the keywords that you want to show him. If you write the differences in points, the problem would be that the examiner will have to figure out the difference himself or herself, right? While checking the answers, one problem that I face in such questions is students, what they do? First, they would write everything about the bottom-up approach. Then they would, next paragraph, top-down approach. Usme kya ho raha hai? You are just leaving it up to the examiner. And in fact, it is rude. कि भैया मैंने लिख दिया, अब अपने आप difference ढूंढ लो. Fine. You are not to do this. Because that poor being who is not paid optimally, he has to check hundreds of scripts, let's say 200, 300 papers, and he has to read the same thing. So, he gets tired of reading all that. So if you will present the things to him in a manner that he is able to quickly oversee, and he is getting the relevant points to look at, and his cognitive overload is being reduced, he is bound to give you marks. In fact, extra marks for the effort that you have done. So whenever you are writing any answer, you have to make sure that it is easily readable for the examiner. He does not have to make extra effort to identify the things and dig out what you want to say, right? Because jin scripts mein ye hoga, definitely that will have a negative impression. Agar aapne sab content bhi likha hoga in that paragraph approach, right? And if you deserve about 5 marks, I can assure you he will not give you more than 3.5 or 4, because of the extra effort that he has to do. Because being organized, being to the point is one of a trait that is expected from a bureaucrat. Because there is, I would say, loads of work that he has to do. Right? I guess, Rakshana, you were there probably in the interaction with Arvind and I remember whenever we have a normal talk with Mayank, he's either traveling or he's into something. All the time they are working with loads and loads of work. Sometimes they call us, and in fact, sir, that I'm tired. I'm just tired. They can call you at any time. If they have to go out for some operation, the time is 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Right? So what is expected of them is that they have to be very organized, to the point, jo kaam karna hai, jaldi se finish karo. So these are the things that they are looking for. Why? Because they would be investing in you in the form of foundation course. So they want to take such people who are high on these basic things, so that whenever they are giving you training, they can impart in you what they want to see, right? And, because of the, I would say, this hype in this test culture, writing 50 tests, writing 60 tests for mains, 30 tests for mains, this commercialization has faded all these things. Students, I feel sorry, they're just focusing on fancy words. आज हिंदू में क्या एनालिसिस आया, आज इस इंस्टीट्यूट ने क्या समरी निकाली, ये निकाला, राइट? ऑल दीज थिंग्स विल नॉट मैटर, ओनली सिंपल फ्लो विल मैटर. इसीलिए बच्चे हमेशा एवरेज स्टूडेंट सेलेक्ट होगा. Believe me, this is my experience with the selection. You know, students who have very high IQ, very intelligent, they have the ability to read, you know, one big book in 2 days, you know, very fancy English that even the teacher gets complexed कि क्या बोल रहा है या क्या बोल रही है. You know, I have seen personally selection का chance very low, because we are missing on these basic things. Your answer has to be simple. Just try to connect it with the first question that we had dealt with. Very easy language, just putting in relevant psychology keywords. That is what is required, right? So make it a point that you are very, very objective, straightforward, to the point while you are writing answers, right? I know, Abhishek, Manoj, you are feeling tired, but probably it is the first class that is taking that effort, because I want to convey a lot probably in the first class, and I want ke wo effort jo hai next session mein, it should be reflective, that when we meet on next Sunday, you are able to put all these suggestions in your answers, right? I want to see that step by step progress. Fine. So even if all of you are doing that, or even 1 or 2 of you are doing that, I am happy. But I aspire that all of you do, right? But I want to see that progress. जो अभी जो गलतियां हो रही हैं, वो बेसिक गलतियां नहीं है. ठीक है, चलिए. So as you have then आपका जो top down processing है, it says that perception is indirect. We our experience and our schemas, they guide us in perceiving or giving meaning to the world. Because perception, what is perception? Giving meaning to the world. So they say that your experience helps you in giving meaning to the world, right? So it is actually conceptually driven. So आपकी जो top down processing है, it accounts for higher level cognitive processing and higher level functions. And आपकी जो bottom up processing है, it accounts for your what? Your organization, basically. Focus is on the organization, right? And the figure over here is Gibson, and over here it is Gregory. Then you would talk about the emphasis on the texture gradient, the spontaneity of perception, right? And wherein your perception would guide your future course of action. You would be talking about ecological validity, your ecological optics, right? Those are the enrichments that you must do finally, right? And then it is actually that eye and brain thing. यहाँ पे क्या है, आपका transactional approach है, wherein our past experiences and other things, they are playing a different role, right? So basically what we do is, in top-down processing, we tend to construct hypotheses and we test them on the basis of our conscious experiences, right? So this way we try to give meaning to the world. However, if we are doing what? Faulty correlations. If we are making faulty correlations, it would result in illusions. So top-down approach also accounts for illusions, and it was demonstrated with the explanation of Gregory through the hollow face illusion, right? So this way you would be writing the main body. And finally, we can always say that it is not about innateness of perception versus your experiences in perception. The whole story about giving meaning to life, giving meaning to world, is the interaction of your top-down and bottom-up processes. Because in life, we perceive the world on the basis of both the processes. So this is how we give meaning to the world, right? बस simple way में कि आप अपना clear जो आपका mind कह रहा है, your viewpoint, you're able to clearly put it across. don't get lost in the fancy words. अगर हो सकता है कि आपको कुछ words याद ना आ रहे हो, जैसे अभिषेक आपके साथ हुआ, so don't worry, that's okay. आपने उसकी जिस्ट बता दी, वही एग्जामिनर तक पहुंच जाएगी. यही होगा ना, हद से हद 5.5 नंबर नहीं आएंगे तो 5 आ जाएंगे. बट जस्ट टू वेट फॉर फ्यू मिनट्स थिंकिंग के वो वर्ड्स क्या थे, यू आर कॉम्प्रोमाइजिंग ऑन फ्यू मार्क्स दैट यू कैन गेट इफ यू आर इन्वेस्टिंग दोज मिनट्स इन द अदर आंसर. तो आधे नंबर के पीछे हम अपने 2 या 3 नंबर नहीं गवा सकते, राइट? सो अपना माइंडसेट बिल्कुल क्लियर रखो that it will be the conceptual clarity that you will be marked for. कहीं पे अगर कोई चीज नहीं याद आ रही, doesn't matter, you have the idea, एक साइड आपके साथ क्लियर है, आपको पता है कि वो दूसरी ऑपोजिट होगी, तो बस create a general difference. यहाँ पे अगर आ रहा है it is contextually driven, दूसरे में लिख दो it is not contextually driven. बस this is the intelligent game that you have to play in some answers. ठीक है, तो ये करना है. So, with this last question that talks about the concept of what? Your multiple intelligence. What was the question? Anybody? The concept of multiple intelligences gave a new view to understand intelligence in terms of various numerous abilities. So, the concept of multiple intelligence focuses upon that intelligence can be viewed by breaking it down into different intelligences. So, defying the concept of unitary intelligence. So one such figure who gave the theory of multiple intelligence to explain it even more minutely was Gardner. So in 1983, he added what? He gave a cognitive and contextual view to intelligence, which says that intelligence is the result of particular context and particular cultural setting. So it is these ideas that drive his multiple intelligence theory. So he says that intelligence is what? It is more than IQ. So his theory is basically what? An educational theory. से कनेक्ट करेंगे एजुकेशन की तरफ. So you have to write a connecting line that this because the focus of Gardner was towards developing an educational theory, or we can see his theory in the form of educational perspective. So it has a lot to offer in the field of education, such as फिर हम बात करेंगे, right? तो क्या इंपॉर्टेंट है, जो भी क्वेश्चन और उसके 2 पार्ट्स हैं उनका कनेक्शन इंपॉर्टेंट है. सो यू हैव टू स्विफ्टली टेक द एग्जामिनर टुवर्ड्स द सेकेंड हाफ, राइट? तो उसमें ऑफ कोर्स यू कैन राइट अबाउट द कोट दैट गार्डनर सेज that I had made you write also, that we should spend less time ranking children and more time helping them to identify their natural competencies, right, and gifts, and cultivate them. So he says that there are hundreds and hundreds of ways to succeed and many different abilities that help them to be successful. So this has been one of the foundation and the cornerstone in formulating the school curriculum, the educational policies. Then identifying the different strengths and weaknesses of the children and applying the theory. Okay? Then you can always write that these Gardner's theory also has application with respect to children with disabilities, because even if they have, let's say, some sort of disability hearing problem, right? They are unable to speak. Doesn't mean that they are not intelligent, because they are not able to answer on the basis of logic and reading. Because आपके जो IQ tests हैं, what do they check? They basically check you on two abilities: use of logic and your reading. That is pure academic thing. So he says that intelligence is beyond academics. That is why he says that intelligence is beyond IQ. So this gives us a perspective to look towards what? Focusing on grading, creating the different grading techniques, graded exposure to your learning, right? Then you can very well connect with what I had made you write in the class itself, right? About you can schools, school children. It has its application wherein it shows that teachers also can be trained, right, with respect to cooperative learning. So that will help enhance different potentials that a particular individual is capable of, right? Then you can talk about role play, use of multimedia, multimodal learning. So bring in the concept of your learning styles. Each individual has different learning style. So focusing on the individual identities, right, this way. And it also has strong implications for adult learning. We cannot just limit education to school level, as humans are evolving and learning every day. तो ये conclusion में लिखो, that will broaden or bring in front of the examiner that you are a very creative individual and you have a broad worldview, right? Say that we cannot limit the field of education just to schools. Humans are learning from their experiences every day. So there also Gardner has the applicability with respect to your what? Your person environment fit, for job satisfaction, enhancing your current skills, fine, and realization of the aptitude that you have, enjoying learning your hobbies, right? So all these things you would be adding on in the answer. Okay? This is how you will answer. Sabse pehle you will say that it is a drift from the unitary approach, which sees intelligence in multiple forms. Then he gave the cognitive and contextual perspective. Then you can write about his famous book, Frames of Mind, wherein he says that IQ is beyond, I mean, intelligence is beyond IQ, right? Then it is much more broader than we have conceived it to be, right? Then talk about the role of human cognitions. Then say that he talks about, in his theory, he has given 7 types of intelligences, such as linguistic, musical, SSA, and recently he has added 2 more, that is naturalistic and the existential. And with this revision, he has also bring forth the view that these intelligences are interdependent, right? And they are complementary to each other, and they help in realizing your true potential. So this has, in fact, Gardner's theory at that time was known as an educational theory, right? And it gave a lot of insights in the field of education, such as जो हमने discuss किया. And in the end, we should not limit our understanding of education only to school level or college level. Human beings are evolving every day and learning every day. So through this line, what are you portraying to the examiner? That you are an individual who is capable of learning every day. You are not passive. तभी मैंने कहा मेंस जो है वो प्रोजेक्टिव टेस्ट है, आप अपनी पर्सनालिटी रिफ्लेक्ट कर रहे हो, एंड दीज आर द थिंग्स दैट दे पिक, राइट? सो think upon all these aspects, brainstorm. If you have time, write down few questions in these, probably in a day or two, यही क्वेश्चंस को दोबारा लिख के देखो. So I don't think so after second session or third session you will be able to you will not feel the need to rewrite them. But believe me, आज 2-4 दिन का थोड़ा सा effort wherein you are rewriting them will give you immense confidence, and it will open new gates for your success. Right? So try, भले ही 2-3 आंसर लिख दो, but try to write them, rewrite them again. Fine? Because आपका behaviorism वाला we have already done, so don't write that. I have already given you and I'll be giving it in you in writing also. ठीक है? Schemas वाला है, if you feel you can. Top down मत लिखो because it is straightforward. You can write about Gardner, right? You can write about the schemas one, and you can write about human memory. Give in some time. Believe me, it will be a great learning experience. आपको मेंस में इतना confidence होगा, right? कोई कुछ भी बोले, keep your lips tight and you say, okay, I'm still learning because we have to learn throughout life. So I'm still on the learning path. But feel that energy and feel that confidence, which is the key to successful life journey, right? I hope you enjoyed these 3 hours.